I expect high things out of myself. So, I planned on pitching to get myself out of there as fast as possible. Fogel left in 3 days, so to leave in 2 weeks, I wasn't all too shocked, but it was definitely, it was early, but I felt like I was ready for it. I threw really well in Salem. I was by no means expecting to be called up when I was. I was definitely shocked, but I also expected to be called up fairly early. So it's just kind of that middle gray area. I was ready, but not expecting it.
All right, guys, welcome back into another episode to the Show We Go Baseball podcast. Today's episode, we have another Red Sox minor league pitching prospect. Today's episode, we have Isaac Stebens on. If you don't know Isaac, he was part of the 2023 draft class by the Red Sox, 16th rounder. And he started this year in Salem and finished off in Greenville and actually put together a pretty good season. So Isaac, I like to throw layups at guys to start these off, and I'm going to give you an easy one to start off. But we're into the off season. You've only had about probably a little over a month off. But how's everything been? What kind of things are you doing to start your off season?
Well, I was born and raised in Stillwater, so I still live in Stillwater, which is where I went to college my junior year before I got drafted. So I do most of my training at OSU. They let me have 24-hour access still. So I do most of my weightlifting and some throwing there. But then me and David Samlin are training at a pitching facility in Oklahoma City called Pitching Works. So we do a lot of our throwing there together. Michael Fulmer is there too. So just a bunch of pro guys hanging out in Oklahoma City throwing together. But most of my lifts end up being here, and that's just kind of what I've been doing. Lifting, throwing, and golfing.
I was going to ask too. So you grew up in Stillwater, obviously Oklahoma State territory. We don't like those Sooners. Was it always going to be Oklahoma State for you? It is kind of cool that you grew up in the town and you ended up going to school there. Was that always your dream?
Yeah, that was always the game plan. We threw some bumps in the road there. I went to junior college, which was the greatest 2 years ever. I loved Cali County Junior College. I would have stayed there for all 4 years if they were a university, but sadly they were not. And I just the moment I got an offer from OSU, I took it. They gave me a walk-on in October of my sophomore year before I had even had that year. And then I ended up going out and being JUCO All-American and ended up completely satisfied with my decision. Walked on to OSU and I had a blast. It was everything I wanted it to be.
So what kind of, when you were coming out of high school, obviously when you went to a JUCO there, what was the, what were the options for you? Like, was it mostly JUCOs? Was it smaller D1? I guess what was the market like?
Well, I'm a 2020 kid, so I had COVID. So I had 5 or 6 junior college offers, before the season had even started. And then luckily in Oklahoma, we do some scrimmages fairly early. So I actually got probably 3 or 4 scrimmage games in and probably 3 or 4 actual games in by the time COVID hit. So I had some mid-major D1s starting to look at me, but I just never fully got good enough to get that offer pulled. And so I stuck with the JUCO, and I have never regretted it once.
So you were the closer your sophomore year on the team that ended up making the Junior College World Series.
We made it both years.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize you guys that Cali County was a powerhouse, but what was that experience like getting to go to the World Series there?
It was crazy. Stillwater kid. Our state tournament game had maybe 100 people at it. So, there was nothing compared to the sophomore year. We got to the national championship game of the World Series. So, there was probably 10,000 people there. That was the first time I had pitched in front of that many people. And it was electric. You felt every bit of that atmosphere. And being a JUCO kid in the middle of nowhere, Kansas, I was a fish out of water, but it was a lot of fun.
And so once you did get to OSU, and I always like hearing, I don't know if you were familiar with Nico Cavadas when he was in the Red Sox system, but, he was a guy that grew up literally right down the street from Notre Dame, and he ended up going to Notre Dame. And, it was kind of like this cool thing to him of like, I always looked down the street and saw the campus, went to the football games, all that. I'm assuming when you were a kid, you might have gone to a few OSU games in your childhood. But once you did get to put on, that jersey and be a student there, like what was that feeling like for you?
I mean, I felt like a little kid in a candy shop that first time I rolled out there. The first time I got to suit up in a real game against another opponent, we were in Globe Life in the Texas Rangers Stadium playing Vanderbilt. And that's where I strapped on the jersey for the first time, made my debut there, and went 4 shutout innings. And I was like, this is a crazy welcome to Division I baseball for me. But it was amazing. I loved every second of it. And I wish I would have played that 4th year sometimes, but I know I'm in a good spot, but it's hard to pass up your hometown.
Yeah, and that actually leads me to my next question here. You were obviously part of the Red Sox 2023 draft class. Take me through your I guess how the draft was for you. Obviously, with you being a 16th round pick, I guess how were you feeling? I guess going into the day you got drafted.
I was a little discouraged. The people that I had met with, they were all saying they were turning me in 5 to 10, 7 to 10. So I was thinking for sure day 2 kind of thing. But at the time I didn't have an agent. And so it was me fighting for myself. And so I just don't think I had that foot in the door that probably would have been pretty helpful. And I mean, my number wasn't super high anyways, because I knew if I went back for a 4th year, it was going to go even lower. So I was able to still secure a deal on day 3. And I mean, as far as pitching goes, I don't really care about what round you're in. I mean, Zach Fogel just went out to the Arizona Fall League for us and absolutely shoved. You got drafted. I don't care when it was. You got drafted to play professional baseball, and that's more than a lot of people can say, and that's kind of how I look at it.
Were the Red Sox one of the main teams? Because we've talked to guys where the Red Sox were kind of on the radar a little bit, and then you didn't hear a lot from them, and then boom, like right up to draft time. There's some guys that are just like, no, I really didn't have much convo with the Sox. Were they a team that was kind of in touch with you a lot, or were there other teams? You have to, out the other teams, but were the Sox mainly, on you from pretty much day one?
So no one really talked to me after the fall. I didn't have a great fall my junior year. I think I met with maybe 3 or 4 teams, and then I went out, had a really great junior year, and led the Big 12 in ERA and qualified innings pitched. So then a few more started calling, but I was still a relief pitcher, and you just never really get much out of those most of the time. And so near the end of it, the Red Sox guy at the time, Chris Riley, he was an Oklahoma State grad. He does the Oklahoma, Texas area. And so he got me on his radar pretty hard. And that was by far my favorite meeting. Once that springtime ran around, I was hoping to go to the Red Sox, no doubt. He was by far the favorite meeting, and the team I was hoping would be the one to call my name.
I've heard a lot of good things about Chris Riley from a lot of guys in that area, with him being the area scout there. So I feel like you were definitely in good hands with Chris. So you didn't end up getting assigned anywhere after you got drafted in 23. Mm-hmm. What take us through, I guess, like what life was like once you get drafted, you sign, you get down to the complex. What was your experience like down there?
It was hot. August in Fort Myers, Florida is humid. I am from Oklahoma, and I am all about the heat, but Florida was a different kind of humid that I had never experienced. 80 degrees never felt like 100 before. I mean, I've had 100-degree weather, and it felt like 100, but when it said 80 and it felt like 100, it was a different animal that I had never been a part of. But a lot of early mornings, they like to get in there, get your work done, get out of there. And I'm a morning person, so I ended up okay, but I got a lot of friends that were dragging in there at 6:30 a.m. report times. But it was a lot of fun.
And what'd you think about your fellow draft classmates? And I know you had some guys, some characters in there. Obviously, like the list goes on and on. I feel like there's quite a few in your class. Obviously, Big Tex, Blake, Kyle. There's a ton of guys there. So how was it getting acquainted to the draft class when you got down there?
Yeah, it was cool. Actually, the craziest story I have from the draft was actually our free agent sign, Drew Earhart. I played with his younger brother at OSU, and I think I met him after we got eliminated from our regional after that year. And I think I met him the day after or something when we were hanging out. And he comes walking in after we had all been there for a second. He walks in, I'm kind of looking at him, like, that dude looks familiar. And I just keep thinking about it, and I realized, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's literally my best friend's brother. I was like, that's sick. And so then we turned around, and me and my fiance were watching the draft all 2024, and we were crossing our legs, fingers, toes, and hoping to get the other one. And so it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think it was kind of a cool moment seeing Zach get drafted. Obviously, he got drafted by the Red Sox previously. So to come full circle and get drafted again by the Red Sox, and right, like you said, right after Drew gets signed as an undrafted guy out of Tampa last year, it is kind of cool. So what has it been like, I guess, with him starting pro ball? You guys got to be teammates this year for a little bit. How cool is that though, getting to wear the Greenville jersey with him again?
I mean, it was super cool. We were saying it the whole time. That's what we were wanting. His brother had already gotten drafted. So me and Zach were texting all the time. They're like, dude, it's your turn. Like, we got two of us. Like, you're next. He's like, dude, I'm trying. He's like, I'll do a lot of things to go there. Ended up happening again. And we didn't end up in many of the same games this year, but it was cool. It was good to see my brother that I had already known for a long time back on the field again. I mean, that's the kind of stuff you dream of, is playing professional baseball with your college friends, your high school friends, anyone you can think of. I mean, old friends and your new job is always a blast.
Oh, 100%. I always kind of say a thing, and we had just talked with Blake Wehunt, and he was kind of talking about his roommates and being a big part of his life. He's living with Connolly Early, Noah Dean, like a bunch of guys that are just high character guys, just incredible human beings. And he's just like, you playing with them makes it a lot more fun. So I totally understand what you're saying there. All right, so on to the season now. I just got a couple questions about that. It was your first full pro season. First off, how are you feeling after you're officially a professional baseball player now? You got your first year under your belt. You got promoted during the season. What are some of your takeaways from this year?
Mostly it's just a lot of learning. In college, I used one pitch, and this year was dive right in and throw as many other pitches as I could. So I went from 1 to 4 real quick, and it was a grind, but still some learning curves in there that we're still trying to work out. But I mean, like you said, 22 years old, and that being my first full year, a lot of good things to take away, a lot of things I'm excited about, but a lot of room left on the table to go and get some more.
Yeah. Looking at your college numbers, to now like your pro numbers, like you had 85 punch outs in, I think, your last year in college. And then last year you had 110. Like, you obviously big strikeout guy. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You're familiar with the Sox Prospects website? We were talking about that earlier, I think, right? The Sox Prospect site. They have you like as topping out as like 95 of your fastball. Is that, first off, is that accurate, or have you added more velo to that?
So that's fairly accurate. Haven't really topped much more than college, maybe 1.5. But the floor has definitely raised over the last year. My average velo has increased. It's a lot more 2s, 3s, and 4s this year, as opposed to at OSU, I could be anywhere from a 1 to 6 inning guy. So there was days that I was throwing 88 to 91 just based on what was being asked of me. So the floor is definitely raised. The ceiling's pretty much the same, but this year we definitely raised the floor, and this offseason we're trying to raise that ceiling a little bit too.
So you talked a little about where you said that you were using pretty much like one pitch in college, and now you have a handful of pitches in the pros. Mm-hmm. again, though, like strikeout totals almost on the same level. What was it like to kind of incorporate some of those newer pitches to get essentially the same result? Was it foreign to you? Was it something that took a little while to get used to? Like, hey, I'm adding in some new weapons into my arsenal to help get guys out, or was it just kind of like seamless? Red Sox kind of like gave some of the information, the tools, and you just kind of ran with it.
I wouldn't say it was seamless. It was definitely a grind. There was no like backlash on my part. Like I was all about it. I knew it's what needed to be done. But going from throwing one pitch that's pretty good, I mean, it had great numbers for me, to adding 3 more. It definitely increased my walk rate just because I didn't know how to control those yet. So we're still like learning those. But I mean, hopefully having a long career, I'm going to nail some of those things down. I was able to strike out more in less innings than I did at OSU this year. So a lot of good things, but definitely was a grind learning those new pitches, just utilizing them more so than anything. I had 3 of the 4 I have now going into the year, but the usage rate went from 85% fastball and 10% slider and 5% changeup to about 40, 20, 20. So it was a big difference to split up that 80%.
Did they show you a sweeper?
They did not. We tweaked what I had, but I mean, from my slot, that's pretty much what I already had. We were just tweaking some grips, trying to get a little more horizontal, but I mean, it wasn't an overhaul by any stretch. That was kind of already the slider I had just because of the arm slot and getting the ball to go left. It was pretty sweepy as is.
Yeah, because you're a little bit lower, right? When you're kind of throwing it, when you release, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like every guy we've talked to in the system is like, yeah, I just started throwing a sweeper at the beginning of the year. Like, oh, well, like they introduced the sweeper to me. It's kind of funny to hear that, but it's like, Blake was saying it earlier. He's kind of like, yeah, like, I wasn't throwing a sweeper until spring training came around, and I just started throwing it in Salem to begin the year. So, yeah, it's I feel like everybody's got a sweeper in the system now. So I guess that's kind of good though that yours was already kind of sweeper-ish. So
yeah.
All right, I want to talk about Greenville. So, well, first off, you had a very small sample size in Salem. Were you like surprised at all whenever you had gotten promoted so quickly?
A little bit, but at the same time, I wasn't. I mean, I expect high things out of myself. So, I mean, I planned on pitching to get myself out of there as fast as possible. I mean, Fogel left in 3 days, so to leave in 2 weeks, I wasn't all too shocked, but I mean, it was definitely, it was early, but I felt like I was ready for it. I threw really well in Salem. I was by no means expecting to be called up when I was definitely shocked, but like, I also expected to be called up fairly early. So it's just like kind of that middle gray area of I was ready, but not expecting it.
And so once you got to high A, what kind of things did you learn about yourself? Obviously, you threw 51 innings in high A, which is a pretty good sample size for the season. So obviously, compared to the 11 that you had in Salem, but you got some closing opportunities. You had 5 saves on the year. So I feel like they used you in a couple different situations there. What were some of the takeaways from the competition, and I guess what you kind of learned about yourself in high A?
The biggest thing I learned is just the swing and miss. The swing decisions just drastically have increased at every level. Obviously, small sample size in Salem, but from OSU, even from junior college to OSU to low A to high A, the hitters don't exactly get much better, but they swing at better stuff. And so my stuff kind of plays down a little bit because you kind of got to throw it. I've gotten so much chase over the years that like I could throw 3 balls off and people would swing sometimes. So like that's been the biggest thing is like they're making so much better swings that I've got to like reel in my actually strike throwing ability and start actually finding more of the plate. Umpires don't give you edges anymore in high A. They give you a little bit in low A, but that plate, it gets pretty close to being the actual plate, and that's all you're going to get. And so with my high movement profile, east to west, it was a big adjustment. We cleaned it up. I had a really good, I want to say July, as far as like my walks go. And so there was definitely some things starting to click as the season was winding down.
And so being an Oklahoma guy, how'd you enjoy Greenville? I think Greenville's a pretty underrated little town there, but how did you enjoy it for the summer? I
loved Greenville. It was nice to not be beaten hot, and it was never really cold. Our pitching coach Bob Kipper calls it God's country, and I don't really have much objection to that. I loved it. It was a great little town. My fiance loved it. Being able to walk around right where our apartments are. I mean, walk and get coffee, walk to the Reedy Falls Park. I mean, just a lot of things to do down there, all within walking distance, which is a lot different than we're used to. Stillwater's a small little town, college town, but you still got to drive to get everywhere. Never really been a part of a town where I get to just walk around to see everything. It was cool.
Yeah, I feel like Greenville is definitely I think it's my favorite of the affiliate cities. I've never been to Salem, but I think I can probably just guess that it probably wouldn't beat Greenville or Portland. But that leads me to my next question here. Have you ever been to New England before?
I have not. I have not been really anywhere. This pro ball journey has been the one taking me all over the place. I've been to Virginia now, North Carolina, South Carolina, all the Carolinas and all those states over there on that East Coast. I had never even debated going over there, and then ended up got really close with Mikey, my roommate. And so me and my fiance just went to California because of baseball relationships for his wedding. So, I mean, I'm going coast to coast now because of this thing. And I haven't made it much past Texas and Kansas before that.
So you just kind of grew up in, the Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas area, and you had probably couldn't have told yourself maybe 2 or 3 years ago, you're like, I'm going to go to California because my former roommate's going to get married out there.
No.
Okay.
Not even close.
Well, I'm gonna just put in a word of advice for you. I grew up in the St. Louis area, so I lived in Missouri for a lot of my life, but New England gets cold, man. It gets cold, and if you start the year in Portland and you're up there in early April, man. Ooh, man, it's.
I remember their first game of the year got snowed out. I'd love to start in Portland, but I don't think I'd mind going to Greenville for a couple weeks just kind of like I did last year. I'll go get a couple weeks in Greenville again, and then maybe about week 3 or 4 go hang out in Portland.
Yeah, escape all the snow. I know Blaze Jordan was very taken back when he saw the snow on the field when they were supposed to have their home opener in Portland this past year.
Yeah.
So maybe get a cup of coffee down in Greenville, and then once it hits it in May, just be like, okay, I'm ready to go.
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right. I want to ask you some questions off the field thing. So, Chris, I don't know if you had anything still on the field related, but I'm going to shift gears a little bit.
Let's shift gears.
Okay. I like to ask guys this because obviously, we could talk about your box scores all day. Anybody can look that up online. So that's obviously something widely available, but I want to talk about you off the field a little bit. I heard you were a pretty decent golfer. Would that be true?
What are we calling decent?
Well, I have a quote from a former teammate. That guy knows how to hammer a golf ball. Would you say that that's pretty accurate of your game?
Yeah, that's the A tier part of my game. When I have a driver, I get after it. I swing pretty hard off the tee box.
That's probably
I definitely haven't had Blake's weak hunt 340, but most of the time I can probably hang up there with him. I mean, okay. I get after it. Short game, but off the box, I let it rip.
Okay, maybe I think that's what he was probably referring to, as in the driver in the bag. But when you're not golfing though, so say you had an off day in Greenville or whatever, what are you doing in your free time?
Well, with only having one off day, most of it is spent running errands to prepare for the next week.
It's fair.
But after that, normally I hop on the video games with my friends or my fiance. I somehow talked her into playing video games to hang out instead of doing FaceTime calls all the time. So when we were doing long distance, we were playing video games, and everybody I've told that thinks that's so cool, and they like wish they could do that with their girlfriends because they don't love FaceTime either. But I don't know how I got lucky with that one. But that's pretty much how I spend my off days, is running errands and playing video games with either her or my friends.
We heard that you and your fiance run duos on Fortnite.
We do indeed.
You do realize that that's rare. Like that's not like
it's crazy.
That's like not like a common theme at all.
We'll run trios with my brother all the time. Last off season, we had 3 PlayStations running in the same house. We were all just playing with each other while we were still in my house. He was in the back room, I was in another room, she was in another room, and we were literally on the game together in October.
If I gave my wife a controller, she would have zero idea what to do with it. Like, how long did that take to get adapted?
She had a PlayStation from like doing like other games. It was kind of like House Builders and some like other games. So it wasn't like first person shooter games by any means. Yeah. But like she has a Nintendo Switch and stuff that she like always played with her family. So like she's got some thumb control. So I mean, it definitely took some getting used to for her to like actually get the part of the game down. But I mean, she's not great by any stretch, but we'll catch some dubs. I mean, we do win. We're not losing every game.
Dude, I'm just thinking, if I gave my wife a controller, set her into a COD lobby, like it would be one of the worst things you've ever seen in your life. Like, I don't even know how that, like, that's kudos to you, man. Like, that's also, that's awesome relationship too, by the way. And I know, like you just said, everybody thinks it's cool. It is cool. So I think that is pretty cool. I heard, and we talked a little bit off air too. You're getting married this off season. What are you? I know you kind of joked about it. Obviously, I just got married last month, so I know that my wife did majority of the planning. Do you have any responsibilities though at all?
Let's see. I am our RSVP closes soon, so I am responsible for texting my invite list guests to remind them to RSVP. We went cake testing last Saturday, so I helped pick out the cake. The guest list. I'll probably help with the seating chart when that comes around, and like the songs and all that. She'll make me help with that, but she picked the venue. I mean, I didn't really care all that much. So it was whatever we could afford. She picked the florist. Like, there's just certain things that I literally have no opinion on, even if I tried. So, but I mean, I put in my fair share, I think. I don't think she's complaining to people that like I'm not any help, but I mean, maybe she is behind my back. I'm not really sure.
Yeah, we never know. All right. It's like I don't know. We could have one perception. It could be completely different. All we know is, happy wife, happy life, man. That's how goal. I live. All right. Growing up in Oklahoma, who did you root for? Like, who were your sports teams? Obviously, I know OKC, the Thunder are there, but for baseball and even football, like who'd you root for growing up?
Football, I'm not a huge fan of individual team. Here in the last like 5 or 6 years, me and my buddies have been grinding some fantasy, so I'll watch whoever I got fantasy players on. That's kind of where I stand on that.
The red zone guy, huh?
Yeah, Well, no, I don't like to watch the whole game, like with the regional coverage. Like, I'll just pick whichever game I got players in, but it's substantially more fantasy related than team related as far as football goes. Baseball, it would have to be St. Louis and Texas, just because Texas is the closest one. But my family is St. Louis fans, and just growing up, Matt being from Stillwater, so we always watched Matt Holliday and the St. Louis Cardinals all the time. I played with Jackson in high school. I go to a Bible study at Matt's house on Sunday nights. My fiance's at a Bible study right now with his wife at their house. Like, we're just big Holiday fans, so we were big Cardinals fans growing up.
I'll tell you what, man. I grew up in St. Louis. Matt Holliday was loved. Just everybody loved him. It was they embraced him quick once he came over from Colorado. It was impressive seeing them just he was just such a likable guy. I swear.
He was in Worcester. Remember that? This year?
Yeah, we bumped into him in Worcester this year when Jackson was up in when what was it? It was like right after he had made his debut. I think he had been sent back down, and
yes,
he was raking in Worcester. I'll tell you that. So that was fun to watch, but it was cool to see him, man. I mean, he's an icon in St. Louis. Everybody just loves the absolute crap out of him.
Yeah.
So is it like, has it been cool to kind of watch Jackson and like, obviously with his ascension and making his debut this year, and how cool is that for you to see that, obviously being so connected to them?
I mean, it's honestly pretty crazy. I remember coming back from junior college when he was still in high school, and our high school coach was having me throw live ABs. And I'm like, this kid's still 17, 18 years old. And I'm like, I remember facing him then. And then I go back for the year, and I think that might have been his senior year because I'm 2 or 3 years older than him. And I come back, and this kid hit 600 his senior year with like 15 home runs. I'm like, this is video game numbers. I mean, he broke the national record for batting average his senior year. And I'm just like, yeah, I know that kid pretty well. I played with him the last 4 years, and then just watching him fly through the minor leagues, I'm like, yeah, it's like the Paul Skeens of hitters, and he's 18 years old, makes his debut before he's 21.
And then there's Ethan, he'll get drafted probably top 3, top 5 next draft. 2025 he's eligible.
Yep, this is his draft.
Yeah, so it's crazy, like just how good those kids are.
Yeah, that's me and Chris had the pleasure of interviewing Jackson whenever he was coming through Worcester. And somebody had asked him in the dugout, it's like, okay, who's better, you or your brother? And he was just like, obviously he's being humble, but he's like, yeah, it's definitely the brother, right? It's my brother. He's way better than me and all that. But it is kind of funny to, see how just good both those guys are. It's an incredible bloodline, man.
Yeah, he says Ethan every time I've ever heard it. It's Ethan, but that's also at this age kind of thing. Ethan was 6'4" by the time he was a sophomore. I mean, Jackson was very much not. So, I mean, Ethan just grew a lot faster. He's got the bigger build. And so, but he's a completely different player than Jackson. It's
almost like he's got his dad's swing, but from the other side of the plate. It's wild.
Ball jumps.
Yeah, it's fun to watch. It's fun to watch on Instagram. I watched their I forgot who they did it with, but like the home run derby they did with like the metal bats and stuff. And just, again, I know it's a metal bat, but just the way that it just comes off that bat with their swings. And I say it every time that we interview anybody who's left-handed. I love watching left-handers hit. It's just something about lefty hitters and lefty pitchers. I know you're not lefty, but just
Isaac is a righty.
All jump off of their bats. It's really impressive to see.
Lefty on the golf course, though.
Okay.
Ooh, okay. I'm noticing that a lot lately. Sugar is lefty on the course, and I would have never guessed. That's crazy.
I hit left in high school, and it has thus transitioned to a driver.
Okay, that's interesting to me. I don't know, like that is weird. All right. Well, yeah, Oklahoma's becoming a baseball hotbed. By the way, I don't know if people are sleeping on Oklahoma right now. I mean, even just in the Red Sox organization alone, you mentioned David Sandler as well. Oklahoma guy.
Wyatt Olds.
Yeah.
Isaac Coffey went to college in Oklahoma. We had Godman last year before he retired. He went to he's from Texas, but went to OU. I mean,
yeah.
Oklahoma's not as bad as people give it its rap for. I mean, we can compete.
It's up there, man. I know that Texas and Georgia and Florida and Cali probably get the majority of the guys, but don't
probably rightfully so. But
yeah, that's fair.
Oklahoma's not far back.
Yeah, I'm with you. All right, I got a couple more questions here. Are you a food guy at all? You don't like food? Might be
not first. A foodie at all. Very, very picky. I eat the same things on repeat.
Do you like?
Yeah, I was gonna say, what does that look like then? What is your diet look like?
A lot of Chick-fil-A and Chipotle.
Okay, so you're a fast food guy.
Just those two. I try to eat
Man.
pretty clean with those.
Okay.
I like other ones, but I try to keep it. I mean, I still try to keep it clean with getting the better versions of stuff at Chick-fil-A and just, I mean, the chicken and rice at Chipotle. I mean, it's pretty.
That was what I was going to say. So when you go to Chipotle and you're gonna order, what's your order look like? Because right now I've been doing rice, double chicken, double fajita, guac, and that's it.
Mine is double rice, double chicken with queso and some cheese on top.
Okay.
It's nice and simple.
I mean, it's a Chick-fil-A is your other option.
If I'm going fast food, I mean, I do a lot of protein shakes, bagels. I mean, breakfast is normally I make at the house, just some carbs and some protein best I can. And then lunch just depends on if I'm willing to make something when I get back from Oklahoma City or if I want to grab food on the way home. And then Mom's always cooking dinner.
Well, I just took a peek at the map of Oklahoma City here, and our favorite restaurant, everybody's favorite restaurant. There's a ton of locations. What are your thoughts on a nice fast food fried chicken chain called Zaxby's?
That's your favorite?
That's his favorite. There's no Zaxby's in New England, so I can't.
Zaxby's over Cane's?
100%. And it's not even close.
I mean, I don't eat either one of them very often, but I don't know that I've ever heard somebody say Zaxby's over Cane's.
You need to be hitting up Blaze Jordan, Jonathan Brand.
Really?
One of other Zaxby's guys in the system. I forgot. I got a couple guys in the draft class this past
year.
Not many. That's fine. Alex Pinellas, big Zaxby's guy.
I mean, it's definitely good. I mean, there used to be one in Stillwater, but it closed down. But yeah, because it's chicken, I'm a big chicken guy. That's about all I eat is chicken and fries or chicken and rice. So, I mean, it's definitely good, but it's definitely not up there on my list of options that I'm going to.
It's fair.
I just had to ask. Past Chick-fil-A and Chipotle, it's probably going. Brahms is a local delicacy around here. If you ask me and David Sandlin about their ice cream, it doesn't get much better than that.
Interesting. All right.
Locally farmed. I mean, you got to be within so many miles of the farm in Oklahoma to be able to even open a Brahms. So we got freshness guaranteed on your ice cream. It doesn't get much better than that.
Look at that, man. Well, the only reason I asked about Zaxby's because I've asked every single guy that came on the show last year. I've done it last offseason and this offseason, and so I've been trying to get a little sponsorship from Zaxby's, but obviously everybody doesn't like it, so it's a little hard for me to do that.
No, I mean it's definitely good. It's just not where I spend my money. But when I'm there, I'll tear it down.
Okay, all right. Well, I got one question left for you to end the show here, Chris. Do you got anything empty in the bench here?
All right, I'm just gonna ask you like I ask everybody else. I need to know what is the most embarrassing song on the music playlist right now.
Could it be any worse than Justin Reamer? We'll find out.
I'm going to tell you right now, after we clinched winning the Big 12 my junior year, we came home. This is probably this is an embarrassing story about music, so we're just going to roll with it. We decided to have karaoke night on the bus on the way home from Norman back to Stillwater. And I was gifted, because obviously you don't get to pick your own songs. I was gifted Party in the USA by Miley Cyrus, and I got after it. I mean, that was probably top tier. One of my more embarrassing things about music is we just won. I was doing it for the boys, and we got after it. There are some hips moving, and hips don't lie. But that was probably the most embarrassing I've got for music.
Nothing wrong with that.
I bet you there's more guys in the Sox system or guys that you played with that probably have very similar songs like that. If you were to just say, hey, and they turn on the song and they had to go ahead and like sing it or whatever, they would do it no problem.
Absolutely.
What was Justin Reamer's? Addison Rae. It was Diet Pepsi.
Yeah. And then the other guys.
Neither.
Some of the other guys were like dance music and stuff like that.
A lot of it was Kyle Teal's playlist,
Yeah.
which was interesting. I think we've got a couple different answers. Connolly early, I think, gave us Kyle Teal's something on Kyle Teal's playlist, something on Christopher Troy's playlist that was also on there.
When it's stuff that I've not heard of though, like I'll go, like as you guys are saying it, I'll go and I'll put it into like iTunes to keep it there so I can go back and I'll go and I'll listen to it just to kind of get a vibe of what some of these guys are listening to. That way when we get, well, you probably won't be at Worcester next year, but at least when I'm there, I'll be able to bring something to the table to Kyle because it's kind of tough to break down his walls a little bit when he got there.
It's all good, but yeah, I mean, I did listen to Justin Reamer's Addison Ray. It was a very catchy tune, so I'm not giving him any crap, man. Justin's he's spot on with that. All right, I got one last question here, and we'll end it on this.
Okay.
I like to ask this question to guys because I am one that likes to speak things into existence, and I just like to keep saying it until it happens, and that's how I like to live. So I don't know. I think other people are kind of like that too. I don't know, but for you, let's say it is November 20th of 2025, and you're looking back at your season. What are, like, you can give me one or two things that you would like to have accomplished in the 2025 baseball season?
In the 2025 baseball season, what do I want to do? Definitely want to be at least in Portland, Maine. Definitely want to really develop this cutter that I've been working on to hopefully give me more landable spin, punch out a few more people, reduce that walk number a little bit. This last year I had a lifetime PR of 95.5, so I guess we're going to say, I mean, that's close to 96, so I feel like 96 is too low. I guess maybe try and hit 97 from a low 3/4 arm slot. Might be pushing it, but be heck of a thing to say if I can do it. I'm going to sure try.
I think Brian Abraham would be pretty happy about that one.
I would imagine so.
All right, Isaac. Well, we appreciate all the time you gave us. Obviously, very thankful. I know you said off air you don't really do too many of these, so very much appreciate all the time and get to know you a little bit. We'll be looking out for you in spring training, and best of luck in 2025. But thank you so much for hopping on.
Of course, no problem.